Hi, I'm Aura, and I'm the host of Collective Mind, and I'm here with Onyx, my fiance, and the host of Primal Pack.
What, you expect me to say something this time?
You usually do!
I actually don't.
Okay, well, I feel like you have lately, but whatever. We're gonna be reacting to a video about PTSD and C-PTSD, and it's by the School of Life YouTube channel, and I don't think I've seen any of their content before, so I'm interested to see like how they talk about it and stuff.
The School of Life sounds familiar to me. I think I've heard some good stuff about them, but I don't know for sure. And I could also just be optimistic about maybe it'll be good.
So yeah, this is a short-ish video. It's about 8 minutes, and I'm curious to see what they're gonna say.
PTSD stands for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder,
So
a
far, so
condition
good.
officially recognized in 1980 to describe exposure to a relatively brief but devastating event, typically a war, a rape, an accident, or a terrorist incident. Complex PTSD, recognized in 1994, describes exposure to something equally devastating, but over a very long time, normally the first 15 years of life. Emotional neglect, humiliation, bullying, disrupted attachment, violence, and anger. A lot of us, as
Can
many
you
as
pause?
20%.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, already, I like that they're making the distinction between it and not
Mm-hmm.
trying to make it less. You might want to put a trigger warning on it, just because they straight up said the R word, which is harder for us. I know it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
Um, but also they're doing a good job with the distinction and not minimizing it or making it sound lesser, because the argument I always heard a lot when I was younger, before I knew much about things, just like when I was still pre-teens,
Yeah.
basically, is that I heard my dad or other people talking about other people he knew who were being too emotional and just weak minded because they hadn't been to war, but they had experienced something traumatic to them and they had PTSD. But the common thought was you can't have PTSD unless you've been to war, and that's
Right.
just not the case.
Yeah.
Like,
Not
there's
even
so many
close.
other things that cause it, and it it really sucks that people minimize it like that and invalidate it, but
Yeah.
I'm glad that they're not doing that.
I actually would wonder if war is even the most common cause of PTSD.
It's not.
It's probably not,
It's one
because there
of
are so many other things that can be super traumatic.
there's there's things that happen all the time that can be super traumatic,
Yeah.
especially for just normal people, because like war in general is traumatic,
Mm-hmm.
but moving and changing schools for a kid can be pretty traumatic,
Yeah.
and that's a pretty common thing. And there's more people that move constantly and have to change
Yeah.
schools and go through that or daily life stuff
Yeah.
as
There's
opposed to like military things.
there's other types of work-related trauma outside of like violence-related things like war. Um, there's just all kinds of stuff. So yeah. Um,
But anyway, or
I had also only recently learned that that was the major distinction between PTSD and CPTSD, was that CPTSD is trauma over a longer period of time. And that hit me really hard when I learned that that's the major distinction between them.
really, I knew about that all along.
Uh-huh. I showed
I,
you the thing.
yeah, I definitely didn't learn that that was the distinction when you showed it to me.
Uh-huh.
CPTSD is so untalked about,
Yeah.
and like even with my like DID and everything, I wasn't diagnosed with CPTSD at the time.
Yeah, you
And
wouldn't be diagnosed with CPTSD in the US because it's not in the DSM-5, it's in the ICD.
oh, maybe that's why.
Mm-hmm. PT PTSD in the US, like in the DSM, is an umbrella term that covers both. But it's two separate diagnoses in the ICD, is my understanding at least.
I see.
Mm-hmm. So I would imagine that this YouTube channel is not based in the US.
That's okay. The US has some good stuff, but it's also got a lot of bad, and
Oh yeah.
mental health, especially from other countries, can add quite a bit to what
Yes.
we lack here.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go back a little bit because they were starting to say like a percentage, and I want to hear that whole thing they were going to say.
Life. Emotional neglect, humiliation, bullying, disrupted attachment, violence, and anger. A lot of us, as many as 20%, are wandering the world as undiagnosed sufferers of complex PTSD.
20%? Wow.
20% is insane.
That's a lot.
It's like 1.5 to 1.75 billion people.
Wow.
If there's 7 to 8 billion people on the earth, like,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, that's a lot of fucking people. Actually, no, that might just be 2 billion straight up. I might just be stupid.
You're not stupid.
Yeah, I'm a little stupid.
Mm.
But damn, that's a lot of people.
It makes sense because long-term trauma of some kind in childhood is common. If you combine the types of stuff that's often discussed surrounding DID, like abuse and neglect and things like that, with bullying and just like strained relationships with caregivers for any other reason, all those other things that they listed, yeah, it's going to be a lot of people.
Yeah, not to mention how normalized abuse is, or
Yeah.
defended by religious circles, and how
Yeah.
largely religious a portion of the world is. It tends to add up pretty quick for how many instances of just abuse are forgiven or expected.
Especially emotional
or
abuse.
Yeah.
And
Emotional
some
abuse.
types of emotional abuse and some types of physical abuse are also much more common than others. And neglect of some kind is very common. Like emotional neglect in particular is very, very common.
Mm-hmm. Also,
Yeah.
with the current sex teachings of the world, like how they teach people about protective sex and stuff, which is they don't, and they teach abstinence.
Yeah.
A lot of people become parents without planning to be, and so they're
Yeah.
not ready to be, or like emotionally ready, but they stick with it anyway, and then
Yeah.
that just leads to a bad start, and
Yeah.
that's just shit for them.
That and the still very much existing stigma surrounding getting treatment for mental health problems causes a lot of people to not go to therapy before becoming parents, and that's where like generational trauma can come into play too.
Definitely.
You didn't realize the bad methods that you learned from your parents because they weren't like that bad compared to other things you've heard of, so they must be fine, and you turned out fine, so obviously it's okay. And then you just, those are the methods you learned, so that's what you do. Yeah. Anyway, we're less than a minute into this video, so
I know.
That all isn't well, but we don't have a term to capture the problem. We don't connect up our ailments, and we have no clue who to seek out or what sort of treatment might help. So, here are 12 leading symptoms of complex PTSD.
okay.
We might think about which ones, if any, apply to us, and more than 7 might be a warning sign worth listening to.
Okay, so put
First,
a finger down challenge.
feeling that nothing is safe. Wherever we are, we have an apprehension that something awful is about to happen. We are in a state of hypervigilance. The catastrophe we expect often involves a sudden fall from grace. We will be hauled away from current circumstances and humiliated, perhaps put in prison and denied all access to anything kind or positive. We won't necessarily be killed, but to all intents, our life will be over. People may try to reassure us through logic that reality won't ever be that bad, but logic doesn't help. We're in the grip of an illness. We aren't just a bit confused.
Okay. I thought that was normal for most of my life. I thought that that type of hypervigilance was normal. And then I started to think like maybe it has to do with like the anxiety that I have, but I didn't connect it to trauma, certainly not C-PTSD, until like very recently. Very, very recently. Anything you want to add?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Secondly, we can never relax. This shows up in our body. We're permanently tense or rigid. We have trouble with being touched, perhaps in particular areas of the body. The idea of doing yoga or meditation or breathing exercises, these things aren't just not appealing, they may be positively revolting.
I did not know that was a symptom of CPTSD. That specific detail of things like yoga and meditation and breathing exercises.
Mm-hmm. That explains why I've always had trouble with the concept of yoga. Every time I've tried to do it, or someone has recommended it, and I've tried it, well, maybe this time it'll work because I'm at a different point in my life, or maybe they just really know what they're talking about, and I'm just doing it that wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Or yoga or shit like that, you know?
Yep.
It also ties back into the first one of I always feel like I'm doing something wrong and it's not safe to do those things.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of that is when you have experienced enough trauma to have CPTSD, like one of the major things about CPTSD is you're just always waiting for the next traumatic thing to happen because so much of your life has been that.
Mm-hmm.
That
like
feeling relaxed is a red flag to our brain that we are not paying enough attention to the signs of what bad thing is going to happen next, and we are like in more danger because of it. We're not prepared enough.
Yeah. Like we've been together for a year and a half, actually more than that now, and I still don't feel safe unless I know that I'm absolutely alone in a house behind locked doors and like 2 or 3 layers of locks.
Yeah.
And that's about the only time I can even remotely relax because I know how long it takes me to come out of relaxing. And if there's enough things in the way that someone wouldn't be able to just smash through, and I have like 3 seconds to prepare, I know I'll be able to snap out of feeling relaxed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We may call them hippie with a sneer, and deeper down they are, of course, terrifying. Probably our bowels are troubled too. Our anxiety has a direct link to our digestive system. Thirdly, we can't ever really sleep, and we wake up very early, generally in a state of high alarm, as though during rest we've let down our guard and are now in even greater danger than usual.
Ashley, Fems, shut up. I know what you're gonna say. I can hear it already. You're gonna at me on the server now. God damn it. I always go to bed after you and wake up before you.
Yeah, I know.
Almost always.
We sleep a lot better than we used to because we feel safe with you, which is new to us. But
yeah,
we sleep way better than we used to. But we still very often don't sleep well. And if we...
You always wake up with a really heavy start, too.
Yeah, when we wake up...
and it's like, what's wrong? What's going on?
Yeah. We wake up suddenly as though there was like a loud noise or something that jolted us awake pretty much every time.
You're battle ready, so to speak.
We go straight into full alert of I wasn't alert and I need to be instantly. Because maybe the bad thing is starting already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fourthly, we have deep in ourselves an appalling self-image. We hate who we are. We
Rude.
think we're ugly, monstrous, repulsive. We think we're awful, possibly the most awful person in the world.
Oh,
Our
God.
sexuality is especially perturbed. We feel predatory, sickening, shameful.
Gavrar, how fucking dare you call me out like this?
Uh-huh. I'm getting
Oh.
really, really blurry with at least Jade and Jayden, by the way.
Uh-huh.
You can probably hear it in my voice.
Uh-huh. I can also tell that these are the kind of things that would bring them close, so
Yeah, I know.
even if I can't hear it, I'm expecting it because, hey, hypervigilance. I pay attention to what their triggers are
Yep.
or what kind of things they tend to, like, take notice of.
Yeah. That's
Like,
partly
if you hear
that.
someone say the word bomb out in public, you
Right.
might, like, passively tune in. And
Yeah.
it's just like, I should keep an eye on that or, like, steer away from that or something. It's kind of like that. I'm not directly doing anything, but it's just like,
Yep.
yeah, they're probably there because, you know, they would be in this situation.
That's one of the reasons you pay attention to our triggers, but you also do that from like a caretaker, protector standpoint.
I mean, yeah.
Fifthly, we're often drawn to highly unavailable people. We tell ourselves we hate needy people, but what we really hate are people who might be too available for us. We make a beeline for people who are disengaged, won't want warmth from us, and who might be struggling with their own undiagnosed issues around avoidance.
That's interesting. I don't hate needy people. I actually like people who are quote unquote needy because it makes me feel needed and wanted. And I think that might go into a trauma aspect more than just a PTSD or C-PTSD aspect.
Yeah.
Because I like feeling useful.
Yeah.
And I like to help people in general. Like, as a whole, one of my favorite things is to just help people if I can.
Yeah.
And I usually end up doing that a lot. And I'm working on that so it's less toxic on my end, just so I don't put myself out there too much. But it's a struggle. Because I feel like I'm an asshole for saying no.
We had a long pattern of like only connecting with people who were very disengaged from the relationship. And I wonder if it gave us like a greater sense of control. If we were clearly the one choosing to like engage in the relationship and they weren't pushing us at all because they weren't interested. Feel safer. I don't know.
Sixthly, we are sickened by people who want to be cozy with us. We call these people puppyish, revolting, or desperate. Seventh, we are prone to losing our temper very badly, sometimes with other people, more often just with ourselves. We aren't so much angry as very, very worried that everything is about to become very awful again. We are shouting because we're terrified. We look mean, we are, in fact, defenseless.
So that one heavily depends on the altar for us, but we are much more
agree.
that way with ourselves.
Yeah. We're
really strict and harsh with ourselves.
Yeah. Feel free to cut this out. I'm adding that there just so there's a little bit of room.
Yep.
But Jayden especially has a knee-jerk defensive reaction of, I need to make you stop wanting to talk to me or being around me, or the things you're saying, I'm going to answer and respond with some kind of aggression or passive aggression so you stop wanting to have the conversation.
Yeah. Creating distance.
I don't think I fall into that category as much. I definitely get angry with myself. I definitely get knee-jerk reactions of getting angry at other people, but I also feel like my trauma gets in the way of that and slows it down or causes it to implode internally.
Yeah.
Eighth, we are highly paranoid. It's not that we expect other people will poison us or follow us down the street. We just suspect that other people will be hostile to us and will be looking out for opportunities to crush and humiliate us. We can be mesmerically drawn to examples.
want to make this a point because it's something I learned recently from you, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call them paranoid. I would call them anxious
Yeah.
because the two inherently fall into the same realm of thing. It's just a slightly different term. Because from the way you've explained it to me and from what I've understood from others, paranoia is when it hasn't happened to you before, but you're worried about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're worried that a plane's going to come crashing out of the sky and that you're going to get hit by it.
Yeah. Where you don't have a
Versus,
logical reason for it. Yeah.
yeah, versus the anxiety aspect of this has happened before, so I'm on the lookout for it and I'm anxious that it's going to happen, not paranoid, because paranoid has a negative stigma to that word.
Yeah.
It's, oh yeah, paranoid schizophrenia and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And people always associate, usually, actually not always, people usually associate paranoia with, like, oh no, the mothership's gonna come down and beam me up or
With
shit
delusions,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah, and they tend to make fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're describing anxiety, not paranoia in this case.
Yeah.
Because to have C-PTSD, you have to have gone through something traumatic. And it could be paranoia, but also anxiety over what other people are going to say or how they react to you is a pretty common fucking thing.
Right. It's like the difference between if you spend every day of your life actually experiencing the thing you're scared of for any period of time, or like many days of your life actually experiencing the thing that you're scared of, going about your day-to-day life worrying that that's going to continue to happen is very different than having a belief not rooted in the reality of your life like that. So it's very much just, this is what I understand life to be. This is the pattern. I'm just like predicting based on the pattern what's going to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
And especially the longer it doesn't happen, the more you're like, well, this is overdue, so it's probably going to be pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
More?
Examples of this happening on social media, the unkindest and most arbitrary environment which anyone with complex PTSD easily confuses with the whole world, chiefly because it operates like their world, randomly and very meanly. Ninth, we find other people so dangerous and worrying that being alone has huge attractions. We might like to go and live under a rock forever. In some moods, we associate bliss with not having to see anyone again, ever.
Yeah.
10th,
Can you
we don't
pause?
register to ourselves.
I'm actually going to argue that one real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with their point, but there needs to be a stipulation, I feel like, that depending on the point of your healing that you're at, you may not be there. And specifically for people especially that have been able to get out of their abuser's household, their primary abuser's household, or from under that influence, and gotten out a little bit. So like for us, moving out from our parents but moving in with our first ex, Crystal, we were really happy to be out from under our parents, but Crystal was also very abusive, and we kept convincing ourselves that it was better to be with them because we thought they were good, and it wasn't our parents, that we didn't want to be alone because we ended up getting so tied up emotionally and monetarily and everything with them that we didn't know how to separate again and face being on our own again. So we craved being with them despite them hurting us constantly, because being on our own would involve us being homeless or something like that, and that was a terrifying thing, and we didn't want to experience that again.
Yeah. I think there's also definitely like a complex longing for being with someone that you can still feel while thoroughly believing that being alone is the only way to be safe.
Mm-hmm. like I said, I'm on both sides of it.
That. Yeah.
Yeah. Because some people are going to hear that point and think, well, that's not true, so I obviously don't have C-PTSD, when they very well could, and they just don't realize how dependent they are on their partner or family or something else like that, because they're not able to see a life outside of them yet.
Yeah.
So they may still crave being alone, but they also might not crave that and crave the exact opposite, because that is the thing that is quote unquote safe to them, or the known thing, which is less scary than the unknown.
It's less Aura now and more Jade and Jayden, just so you know.
Okay.
I had changed the picture and stuff to Jade, but I'm gonna change it to Jayden, actually. I think I'm closer to out than she is.
Okay. Sounds Gucci.
As suicidal, but the truth is that we find living so exhausting and often so unpleasant, we do sometimes long not to have to exist anymore.
Ooh, that's such a big mood. God, that is such a mood. It's not the mood that you want to die, you just don't want to exist.
Yeah,
you don't want to have
living
to
is
wake
just
up.
too much. Yep.
Yeah, like, fuck. I enjoy living with you, but depression sucks a lot, and there are times where I just don't want to exist. It's not that I don't want to be with you, it's... Oh, man. Like, not you, because you're Jayden. Like,
I know.
you're my friend, and actually I wouldn't mind living with you. I think you would hate me, though.
Not quite.
I don't know, I'd get on your nerves pretty quick. You're very serious, and I'm very not serious.
I didn't say you wouldn't annoy me. I said I wouldn't hate you.
Oh, this is true.
We can't afford to show much spontaneity. We're rigid about our routines. Everything may need to be exactly so, as an attempt to ward off looming chaos. We may clean a lot. Sudden changes of plan can feel indistinguishable from the ultimate downfall we dread. 12.
On top of that, can you pause again? To talk about that one a little bit more. On top of that, you may clean, but you may clean in a way that is not what other people clean as. You may have a laundry pile, and that laundry pile has to stay a pile for so many reasons. Like, just an easy one off the top of my head is, if the clothes are put away, it takes longer to get them out, and you can't see where everything is in that moment. So it's going to take you longer if an emergency happens, versus if it's out, you can see it, it's your pile, you know where it is, it's the way it's been, and you can grab whatever you need and go right away. So your cleaning may end up having organized mess or organized chaos, because that's what you're used to, or that's what you're comfortable with and can function best with. Like, our desk is always in a specific order because we need certain things, and we keep those things on hand and nearby, and it's usually messy, but it works for us because we're constantly using it or moving it, and because we need it.
Yeah.
Bid to try to find safety, we may throw ourselves into work, amassing money, fame, honor, prestige. But of course this never works. The sense of danger and self-disgust is coming from so deep within, we can never reach a sense of safety externally. 1 million people can be cheering, but one jeer will be enough once again to evoke the self-disgust we have left unaddressed inside. Breaks from work can feel especially worrying. Retirement and holidays create unique difficulties.
Ouch.
Those are the symptoms. So what is the cure for all these arduous symptoms of complex PTSD? Partly we need to courageously realize that we have come through something terrible that we haven't until now properly digested, because we haven't had a kind, stable environment in which to do so. We are a little wonky because long ago the situation was genuinely awful. When we were small, someone made us feel extremely unsafe, even though they might have been our parent. We were made to think that nothing about who we were was acceptable. In the name of being brave, we had to endure some very difficult separations, perhaps repeated over years. No one reassured us of our worth. We were judged with intolerable harshness. The damage may have been very obvious, but more typically, it might have unfolded in objectively innocent circumstances. a casual visitor might never have noticed. There might have been a narrative, which lingers still, that we were part of a happy family. One of the great discoveries of researchers in complex PTSD is that emotional neglect within outwardly high-achieving families can be as damaging as active violence in obviously deprived ones. If any of this rings bells, we should stop being brave. We should allow ourselves to feel compassion for who we were. That might not be easy, given how hard we tend to be with ourselves. The next step is to try to identify a therapist or counsellor trained in how to handle complex PTSD. That may well be someone trained specifically in dealing with trauma, which involves directing enormous amounts of compassion towards one's younger self, in order to have the courage to face the trauma and recognize its impact on one's life. Rather touchingly and simply, the root cause of complex PTSD is an absence of love, and the cure for it follows the same path. We need to relearn to love someone we very unfairly hate beyond measure, ourselves.
The School
Okay.
of Life offers online...
Okay, fuck you. I don't think I'm ever capable of loving myself.
So
Um,
I want
damn,
to
if that's the
highlight.
cure, I'm not getting cured anytime soon.
I want to highlight that is a touching ending for someone who does not have C-PTSD, and it is a hopeless ending for someone who does. If they are not very far along that journey already, it's gonna sound like, to cure your C-PTSD, stop having one of the major symptoms. Just get better.
Yeah, it does, because I think it was number 4 was you don't like yourself.
Yep. That's a really frustrating end to that.
It is. It's also somewhat true, though, of you to stop hating yourself, you need to start liking yourself. That is true, but it's also frustrating.
Yeah.
Because man. Because I can imagine, and I feel it somewhat, of if the cure is to stop doing the thing that I'm doing, then I'm doing this to myself. So I'm really just a bad person.
Exactly.
And shitty for hating myself. And then I'm just still hating on myself and continuing the problem. And then that's going to cause a spiral of anxiety of like, well, I can't stop hating on myself, but I have to stop. Come on, stop it. And then insulting yourself, and then it just...
It
God,
can
that
very
ending
easily
can
be
feel
read as
so
victim blaming.
hopeless. Yeah, and it's not your fault that you hate yourself. It was the way you were taught to see yourself in your life was to not appreciate yourself, or to only appreciate the bad things that you do and only focus on those.
There's also a very twisted concept of to feel a greater sense of control when you don't have any control. One of the best ways to do that is to blame yourself for what's happening, because if it's your fault, then you can do something different to stop it. But if it's not your fault and you have no control in that situation, that feels worse in that moment.
Yeah. Man, that really sucks. That's difficult as fuck to do.
Anything else you want to add?
No, it was a good video.
Yeah, I agree.
The ending can seem not hopeful. The ending can seem hopeless.
Yeah.
But there is hope. You can love yourself again. Finding a good support system can be super, super important. And listening when they give you compliments, even if you don't like it or believe it, if they're giving you a compliment, it's okay to take it.
Yeah.
But be careful about just blindly believing what everybody says. Compliments are one thing. If it's an insult, as hard as it may be, try to let it go and tell the person that it's not okay to do that.
Yeah.
Because you can think whatever you want about yourself, but it never makes it okay for someone else to say that about you. Treat yourself like your own friend, because a lot of people I know with C-PTSD or even PTSD or whatever, they won't let their friends get insulted, and they'll go to like war and shit to not let their friends get insulted,
Yeah.
but they'll let themselves get insulted all the time. So try to treat yourself like your own friend. It does get better though. Just takes a lot of time. And that can feel like an impossible order.
Yeah. So the title says it's about PTSD, but it's pretty thoroughly focused on C-PTSD. So I would maybe make that small edit to the title if it were my video.
PTSD and C-PTSD.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if they did that because PTSD is more recognizable. I'm not sure.
Maybe. But it could also be that so that it can include like the Americas and stuff.
True.
Just because ICDM versus DSM.
Yeah. Reacting to this video was actually a suggestion from someone on our Discord server. So if you have any suggestions for other things we could react to or other videos generally, feel free to put it in comments, or ideally come over to that Discord server. The link is in the description. We have a whole channel just for video ideas. And you can also vote on ones that other people say. That's very helpful to us. So we really like people to give ideas like that. We'll link the original video in the description box. And if you liked us talking about it, feel free to click the like button to let us know. And you can subscribe and ring the bell to see all of our future videos. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss any. But we also announce them on our Discord server, so that's another way. But yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.